We never turned our back on them. If our partners have decided now is the time to change relations, we would only welcome that. I got the impression that indeed, at least on a technical level when discussing issues, there's a real interest in resuming working with us on a lot of different issues, from the economic and political to security.
It's the beginning of a thaw, right? I mean, I don't think that we can go so far as to say that the thaw is anywhere near complete. It's just people speculating that, hey, you know, things like the Russian president there was saying are starting to look a little bit better. And the thinking is that if Russia cooperates with the West on ISIS in Syria, then you could see those sanctions eased. I don't think anyone expects them to be dropped. But that's just speculation at this point. The Germans, for example, they're going to rally pretty hard, the Eastern European countries, against the idea of just giving Vladimir Putin a free pass when it comes to sanctions because he's working together with the West on Syria.
This may be the single silver lining of these atrocities that we witnessed about a week ago, that this might create a platform for Russia and the EU and including the US to come a bit closer together again. And the reason for that is that the EU in particular, and the EU matters much more because the sanctions of the EU are much more damaging to Russia as the European countries are a bigger trade and finance partner to Russia than is the US. So for the EU, there are currently two big problems that they have. One is the refugee crisis and the other one is terrorism. They all have their joint origin in Syria.
We've heard from Francois Hollande that they will continue to go through their plans to accept 30,000 resettled refugees. You've heard in the States a big debate about this. Bloomberg has a poll out that says 52% of Americans do not want to accept the 10,000 Syrian refugees that President Obama, 52% that President Obama has pledged to accept. Tomorrow there's going to be a big meeting in Brussels. Interior ministers are going to be gathering. As we've heard from the Polish side, and basically this is an east-west split, some of the newer members of the EU, especially on the Eastern Front, are concerned about accepting these refugees.
Not only had ISIS oil production and revenue been so much higher than anything they had ever dreamed of, but we had done very little, if almost any, permanent lasting damage to that infrastructure. Now they're saying, quietly, after the Paris terrorist attacks, that ISIS is making $500 million a year from oil alone. That's a $400 million miscalculation in favor of the ISIS balance sheets. So, I mean, one of the things we saw after the terrorist attacks was the Pentagon said, we bombed a line of tanker trucks today, 116 tanker trucks. And that was the headline. The headline maybe could have also been, why are there 116 tanker trucks lined up to buy oil from ISIS?